Smiling Friends is a new show on Adult Swim, has 8 episodes, about 11 minutes each. On today's episode, we're reviewing the entire season, ranking the episodes, discussing the characters, talking some of the plot, and then the background. I think we should start with the background in the show.
Okay.
Because you assigned it to me, I never heard of it before. It became pretty obvious pretty quick that, when shows, cartoon shows specifically, need to make themselves unique right off the bat in order to sell themselves.
Yeah.
That's what this show felt like it was trying to do straight from the beginning, and that's probably the reason it was picked up. It also looked like it had a limited amount of people associated with it.
Well, do you remember when we were doing the Primal podcast, we talked about the April Fool's pranks that Adult Swim usually pulls?
Yeah.
And do you remember what they pulled in 2020?
Off the top of my head, no. I think the Rick and Morty one, where they released it early, came out a few years before that.
Yeah, that was 2017. But in
that was 2019.
In 2020, what they did was they aired a ton of stealth pilots, including Primal, A Shivering Truth, and Smiling Friends, and another show that we'll talk about later.
So they'd already released the first episode to this.
The whole night. Well, what happened was Smiling Friends was the only one that was uploaded to the Adult Swim website because of popular demand out of all the episodes that were shown that night. And because of that, Adult Swim decided to pick it up.
So Shivering Truth and Smiling Friends, do they have any connection with each other at all?
No, but I think that the Shivering Truth episode that they played was season 2, episode 1, while Smiling Friends was just this one episode.
Yeah, it was the premiere, it was the pilot.
Right, exactly.
Which isn't my highest rated one out of all of them. In fact, it goes on the second half part, so like the lower end.
Okay.
The lower tier. So if people really like that one, they'll probably really like the rest of the season. Also, this episode, this podcast, should only be for people listening who have seen the entire season, because I'm going to be discussing spoilers.
Right, and before we go into the actual show, though, I feel like I should give background on the 2 people that have worked on this show. Their names being Zach Hadel and Michael Cusack, both of which...
Any relation? Cusack?
No, but both of which have a YouTube channel. With Zach Hadel, his YouTube channel has over 1 million subscribers, and it's called Psychic Pebbles. And I didn't actually realize I had seen one of their videos before. It was called, Where Am I? Or something like that. And basically, he took a Uber soundbite and animated over it, and that's his most popular video on that channel. But that's probably the tamest out of all of them, because his channel, and you can say this for Michael Cusack as well, is entirely reliant on shock humor. I mean, you go to his most popular videos, it's bloody, it's gory.
A mix of 3D and cartoon, or all cartoon?
Usually it's just all cartoon.
Okay.
But
this show had humans in it. This show had 3D. This show had cartoon. It kind of mixed it all. Mostly cartoon.
What they did for this show was they used, I believe, Adobe Animation for the 2D part of it, and then they used for the backgrounds and the 3D parts Adobe Photoshop. And
you've had some familiarity with both of those, right?
Yeah, I had to use them, I believe, back in high school.
Is it hard?
If you can't draw on paper, in good detail or anything like that, I don't think you can use Adobe Animation. It's too difficult.
So it's something you use with an iPad?
Well, yeah. Or people who are artists. But the thing about Zach Hadel and Michael Cusack is that whenever they were doing any type of interview for this show, for example, they went on Moist Critical's podcast and talked to him for a good hour and a half.
Yeah.
He also spoke to Nick Wolfhard, who's Finn Wolfhard's brother. I believe both of them show up in this show. During
Not as themselves.
Well, no, obviously not. But during a Comic-Con convention, the one thing that they continually did was you never actually saw their faces. They just had an open notepad, and you just saw them continually drawing. And it wasn't just one drawing that they were drawing throughout the whole entire podcast. They were drawing several different type of things. So they've had a lot of experience. For example, Zach Hadel. Do you know what Newgrounds is? I feel like you have to. You don't know what Newgrounds is?
Not just based off the name.
It was the first YouTube, but it was even more strict than YouTube, because if your video was hated enough, you were going to get bumped off of it.
I thought the Numa guy was on the previous version of YouTube. That wasn't called Newgrounds, though. It was called something else.
Well, Newgrounds has been around forever. It was the place to go if you wanted to see animation before YouTube came around.
I thought it had a different name, but okay, yeah. So that's Newgrounds. That was
right.
The pre-YouTube YouTube.
So that's where Zach...
It's MySpace to Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where Zach Hadel started. And then you had Michael Cusack. Both of these people are self-taught in animations. Maybe you could tell that from the TV
pretty
show.
Obvious, yeah. It's kind of like the Final Space, where if you ever see the rough cut of the first edition, it was by Olin Rogers or whatever. It was definitely him just drawing.
And this show is a lot like that, just kind of the history behind
Probably
it.
Probably how it was picked up. I gathered. So I also was curious, because I asked about the Shivering Truth earlier, but which is creepier? Like, I mean, I haven't seen too much Shivering Truth, but that's supposed to be like a really bleak, creepy, disturbing show, right?
They say it's nightmare fuel. But the thing is,
so is this supposed to be on that level? Because in the first episode...
I'll tell you this. Zach Adel, one of his most famous series that he has on YouTube is called Hellbenders. Like most of his other content, it's very like dark and disturbing, or supposed to be disturbing, bloody, and gory. But he's made multiple episodes of it. Comparing that to The Shivering Truth, I would say The Shivering Truth because it's more... blocky and it's animated. Like I think that they do the same thing that like Aardman does.
I mean, this is animated.
Well, no, but it's like claymation that they use.
So
I would say The Shivering Truth compared to that is probably more.
It's stop motion.
Yeah, The Shivering Truth. Yeah.
Okay. The creepiest thing that happened in the first few minutes of the show, which was the boss, Mr. Boss, took out like this little baby boss. And then, like, started milking it, or actually, it was milking from him. It was nursing from him.
Oh, do you hear the sounds?
Yeah, and then it bites him, his nipple, and he takes it off, and he's like, "Don't bite me, or I'll bite you." And then the thing was like, "Yes." Well, so it was disturbing at that point. I thought it was gonna be one of those shows where I'd have to maybe even look away just because I don't want to see like a bunch of really crusty old nipples in shots every time.
They're very disgusting characters, right? Like with Triplets de Belleville almost. That's why I got, because I did see a clip from
some of the drawings, especially when they're depressed or angry or something, they do devolve how they look into like a golem-esque.
Like their face almost changes, because that's something that Zach Hadel does a lot in his video, and Michael Cusack. Yeah,
Pym looks different at the end of episode 1, and then he also looks different at the end of the fantasy episode where they're going to see the princess. So yeah, they definitely turn blue and gross, and Desmond from the first episode also looks completely gross.
Describe what Pym and Desmond look like.
Pym and Charlie?
Oh, Pym and Charlie, yeah.
Those are the two main characters. One's like a little purple Oompa Loompa guy, and then the other one is just a yellow sort of blob with a big nose.
Yeah,
that's Charlie. And they kind of walk around, and when he talks to Charlie, sometimes sounds like the Charlie the Unicorn, like when they're talking to him.
Yeah.
They're like, Charlie, like that type of dynamic.
From what I learned, we kind of were talking a little bit about the content just now, but Zach Hadel and Michael Cusack, they fought to keep a lot of jokes in here, and like Adult Swim kind of gave them free reign to do that, but they said most of the fighting really came from SMP, like the lawyers and stuff, who were saying like, no, you have to cut a ton of these jokes, but because of the fact they were talking about that, like TV is kind of trying to become the new internet in that sense, and because they also knew what they were talking about, but were from the internet, they were able to keep like over 90% of the jokes that otherwise maybe like less experienced people were able to do.
It goes without saying that this show wouldn't have existed 10 years ago without the Rick and Morty's, the Shivering Truths, the Todd Glass show, whatever that freaking thing is, the Close Encounters, or Close Enough.
Oh, yeah, right. But that wasn't
all of these are kind of like unique comic 2D animation styles that just have taken off over the last couple of years. But I do wonder if what you're talking about, the legal thing, it has to do with they made fun of Jimmy Fallon by doing a recreation of him, kind of like how Animaniacs did Seth Meyers. Not favorable at all. They also had like literally the most insulting joke. They were like, we can't get Mr. Frog on any program. And then suddenly...
I saw a picture of...
Yeah. And then suddenly they were on like Jimmy Fallon because he's the only one that would accept them. You had them making fun of blackface, making fun of The Evil Dead, Lord of the Rings, social topics. So I wasn't afraid to like shy away from that satire and controversy of what was going on. Like Mr. Frog's whole thing was that he was accepted. He's like a shamed celebrity, right? Mm-hmm. And by the end of the episode, he gets his career back, and he's as like narcissistic and evil as he ever was, but he's still like on the top of his game. Like he gets his full celebrity back by like murdering someone. But yeah,
like does it go into detail of the murder? Is it a gory show? I guess is my question.
It's bleak. There's blood. They beat people up and stab them, but it's not gory because it's all cartoon. Like, it doesn't gross you out in that way. It was more gross seeing the little egg baby or whatever.
I know what you're talking about with the social topic issues, because they said that the main influence for this show was South Park, really. And then they also said stuff like Futurama and The Simpsons, but more so...
the classics.
Right, but...
I was mentioning all the ones from the last, like, decade, and they were talking about ones from, like, 1990s.
And I believe, that actually goes to my next point, because is it a story? Does it have a story, or is it just one-off episode?
Episode 8 mentions episode 1, and they kind of, like... Episode 8 is by far the best. Mm-hmm. Like, that was made my top chart, followed by episode 2, but by a far margin. So, like, episode 8 separates itself extremely. Like that's one that I would enjoy at any occasion. The rest of these are kind of like, if I'm in the right mood, I'll enjoy them. But
What mood is that?
Open just to any comedy. Some of them would get a little annoying to just watch back to back to back.
They said that they did it for rewatchability. Like that was a main.
Yeah, I'm sure you would see, because the background of the cartooning and of stuff like that, there's a bunch of hidden jokes and stuff that you'll catch. But it's a predictable formula where it's like a simple plot starts off the entire episode. They're either helping someone or tasked with doing something like solving a murder or going on an expedition or getting firewood. And then it just like cascades from there. And then you just follow either Pim and Charlie. You really didn't get to see Alan or Glep too much, except for maybe in the first 2 episodes. Alan had his own like storyline in the first episode, and then we just like never see him throughout the rest of the thing. It really is just Pim and Charlie, and basically Pim's show, because Pim has his own episode. I guess Charlie, the last episode, I take that back, does have his own episode at the end, and then Gilbert Gottfried for some reason comes into play, and it's just, that was the only voice that I was like, oh, that's 100% who that is.
The main reason for that is they were saying how, like, if you look at TV nowadays, really, even South Park, before, like, the big contract, their, like, other seasons, but also shows have kind of adopted the story aspect of it, full season story arcs, and they were saying how, since they were growing up, really, with the 90s South Park and other, like, adult animation, really, they wanted to make a show where you could jump in at any point, and sure, there'll be references if you saw different episodes that you would understand where they were coming from, but that wouldn't be a full story.
But you can't completely discount Rick and Morty's influence on this thing. Like, they have characters like the Meeseeks that are called Bleeblies, and the character animation can sometimes look shockingly like it was made by the guy from Rick and Morty.
Well, there's...
What's his name again?
Justin Roiland.
Justin Roiland, yeah.
Yeah, and Michael Cusack, the reason for that is because on a different April Fool's prank back in 2018 for Cartoon Network, Michael Cusack like aired an animated parody of Rick and Morty. It was supposed to be like drawn terribly. It was like under the world. It was like under the...
At a certain point, a network's going to receive one of these where it's like, oh, these are these up-and-comer like cartoonists, and then this network's going to realize, no, these people just are drawing circles and scribbles and just trying to get it made like the rest of these.
But Adult Swim like hired him to do this, and it was supposed to be terribly. It was like under the name Bush World Adventures or something like that, and it was this very short clip. And I have one truth and a lie about what the episode, the little short, was about that they aired, and I wanted to see if you could guess it. The first one is Rick and Morty go to Australia, and making all the bumpers Australian theme. And bumpers are what Adult Swim airs, the commercials they air for Adult Swim.
This felt like New Zealandish humor, by the way. I just throwing that in there. Right. Because one of the Pim's character has a New Zealand accent, I think.
Yeah, well, that's Michael Cusack, I believe, and he's from Australia. So.
Why did I think it was New Zealand? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. The second one is...
They would be really upset if I... Go ahead.
The second one is Rick and Morty are in a James Lipton Inside the Actors-like setup, talking about fictional events that'll happen the next season. At that point, it would have been season 4. The third one is a 10-minute episode where Rick dies and Morty falls into a deep state of depression and he decides to do drugs randomly. And the fourth one is a short where the characters look absolutely nothing like Rick and Morty but feature the actual cast voicing their respective characters.
They all seem pretty plausible. The last one just seems like it's what you're describing, though, right? Where someone comes in, animates them, and then they all voice... Like, they were going to voice them regardless, right?
And all these other ones, the main cast does not voice them.
Oh, so that's what you're saying. So I'll say the last one, then?
No, it was the first one. Rick and Morty go to Australia, and they made all the bumpers for the rest of the night Australian themed. Okay. They decided to loop it right when Rick and Morty was supposed to play, and they played it like 3 separate times, and I don't even think they played the Rick and Morty episode that was scheduled.
So they just drive there? Like a Key and Peele sketch?
Yeah, and it doesn't, again, they're the triplets, they Belleville characters. They look completely ugly. Like, I believe that's what they're like in this show, too, right?
Sometimes. The Desmond character is very ugly until he finds his happiness. That's kind of the point of the show, is that they work for this company named the Smiling Friends, and they go around and they make people smile. So at first it feels like they're working for a suicide hotline, because Mr. Boss just... That's what
they said.
But then later on, it becomes something like they're outsourced into doing detective work, like I talked about with a murder, or like they go on to save like a princess's life, or...
So the murder one, that was who violently murdered Simon as Salty, right?
Yeah, let's go through my list in order, unless you have like something else you want to...
I'll finish up with Michael Cusack, because he has done some work, some other work, apparently.
How old are these people?
Well, I believe Zach Hadel is 31.
Okay.
Michael Cusack, I think, is at the same age. He worked on a film called Shrek Retold, which is a fan-made shot-for-shot recreation of the 2001 film that got over 200 animators to do the...
Yeah, they've done that with like Star Trek and Star Wars.
It got positive reception, and they're actually doing the second one. They're going to retell the second one. It's in development right now.
Weird.
And he's going to work on the Koala Man show. He also worked on YOLO Crystal Fantasy, which was a different Adult Swim episode. But let's go through the which ones were your favorite episodes.
Well, there are 3 other animated shows I should probably bring up too. Animaniacs, which likes to do the satire, but also in a lighter, friendlier, kiddish way. Mm-hmm. And then you have that other Adult Swim show, the one with the meatball.
Oh, Aqua Teen Hunger Force?
Aqua Teen Hunger Force, because you have a soda guy. That guy is also... It's not the same person, but there is also a soda character. Like that sort of looks like him in this. His face is at his little spout, his straw spout, as opposed to his cup form. I could really compare this to any cartoon. Even the Glep character, like, he reminded me a lot of the Monsters, Inc. show that we did, the green guy from that.
I was going to ask if this was like that in any way. Because, I mean, definitely more adult.
Because it's a workforce. They're all at work, and that guy doesn't speak, and Glep barely speaks. He's kind of like Gary from SpongeBob, too, in that way. It's just all the things are merging. Everything is together. Cartoons are cartoons. And then also, what's the show with, not Futurama, but the Netflix one? The Enchanted one. Disenchanted, like, yeah. Where they go to hell. That's kind of a similar aspect to episode 8 here, because in that episode you have Charlie, he dies, and then he has to like talk to the devil and get him to smile in this 11-minute thing, and then he is successful, and by doing that the devil then tries to betray him, but then he's sent back to Earth. But it was cool because you actually got some serious development with Charlie in this one, in the 11 minutes that it had, and I liked the conversation that he had with Pim. It was kind of realistic at the beginning. So that's why it came in at my top spot. The second episode was my number 2, and that had to do with Mr. Frog, and he had 47 seasons where he was just like the most popular TV personality.
47 seasons?
Yeah,
like
he was going strong, and then he ate someone or almost swallowed a TMZ reporter, and that got him canceled, and then they went to try to help him, but every time they tried to like suggest a good idea for him to like get in the good eye of the public, he would like cut off someone's hands unintentionally or intentionally. And then by the end, because they tried to rebrand the show and like cast someone new, but then the producers like overproduced it and were like trying to be really safe, it came out terribly. And then so when Mr. Frog shows up and eats the producer, then he gets a bunch of credit again and he's back on TV. And then this is all presented by someone who's talking to the viewer as if this is a documentary about the series. And then Mr. Frog shows up and eats the real person with a knife.
Eats the real person?
Well, he's coming after them with a knife, and they start screaming and running off screen.
See, the thing that the creator said is they said this show it's supposed to have a story every like 11 minutes, but that it can do literally anything. That's what they wanted everyone to know. Like the stories could go anywhere. Most cartoons at
this point, Close Enough for sure does the same exact thing.
Well, they said that they were also focused on world building. Like apparently there's a Google Doc that's just pages of pages shared between the two creators of like world building information that they're never gonna put in the show, but just to kind of mold it better for them, they said.
Yeah, and you could definitely see that with things like the forest episodes, because there's one where he has to go in, and this is a Halloween-themed episode, and Pim goes out on his own adventure and like tries to find firewood in a forest, and then later on, a different forest is used that's an enchanted forest where they have to go on that fantasy mission and save the princess or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are trying to develop something, but it also takes place in sort of reality, because they made a fact about helium and how we're running out of it, and it's kind of similar to our real world. So I think and they do have humans.
So they are trying to like almost parallel it a little bit.
I mean, I think it could actually exist in our world. They just, parallel universe makes most sense. So episode 5 is my third favorite one, but from my favorite 2 through 8, there's not much differentiation. I can't stress that enough. So episode 5, which one was that again? That was where
a violent murder.
Yeah, so this all takes place in Charlie's favorite fast food joint, where they have a bunch of mascots like ketchup and mustard.
And I'm assuming those are the suspects.
And those are all and then the squeaky floor or whatever, and they're all suspects for the murder. And then it's kind of like obviously a whodunit, but also like the Agatha Christie thing, where they're all kind of involved in some manner, but then it turns out he actually died before they even killed him, so it didn't matter.
It was like no one actually ended up murdering him.
Ta-da! I mean, it's more about the journey, right?
Yeah.
And there were some jokes that were pretty funny in that. Episode 4 was my next favorite one.
A silly Halloween special.
Yeah, so that's the one where... Oh, that one actually had a really cool ending. So, like, yeah, he's sent off to do firewood, and it's just him the entire time running through the forest, being chased by, like, this weird demon thing that's a 3D demon.
Yeah.
So so then he finally makes it back to the building, and you think, okay, well, maybe they'll either show the demon was fake. No, it just keeps on chasing him right through the building, and then breaks into the place where they're having the costume party, and then there's the whole party there, and they all look at the demon, and they're like, are you wearing blackface? And then the demon's like, no, this isn't blackface, I'm just a demon. And then they all kill him. So... Because of blackface.
Well, is it like an offensive show though?
No, because it's not trying to like say that that's a good thing. Like it wasn't trying to promote blackface. It was trying to like just show how cancel culture is like super powerful.
Yeah, I read a review that it was the only.
It is making fun of cancel culture.
Yeah, it was the only really scathing review of the show. Everything else
scathing.
Yeah, there was like one article.
I give it a mediocre. Like as a whole, I should probably say that I give the show a 7.
A 7?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, except for that scathing review, which even some Redditors pointed out, they were like drawing dots that didn't really need to be connected. It seems like the show is really, really liked by a lot of people because of the fandom of already Zach Hadel and Michael Cusack's other work. Has an 8.9 on IMDb with like 1,600 reviews. The episodes themselves don't have that many reviews, so there's really no point going like through them. But there's no big name place like the New York Times or LA Times or Hollywood Reporter that has reviewed the show yet. All of the other like websites have basically said, yeah, it's a great show.
So it'll take a while before it's noticed by the bigwigs.
Right, I think so. And that might be soon because it's going to go to HBO Max next month. What Adult Swim did was they were like, okay, we're going to show you the premiere episode on January 10th, but then after the premiere episode, it just ended up being a surprise marathon, so they decided to show all of the episodes that one night when it was really just supposed to be the first 2 episodes, I think.
Cool.
No season 2 has been greenlit yet, but Zach Hadel did say that if there's going to be season 2, it's going to have to be because the audience reached out to Adult Swim. That's part of the reason why season 1 was picked up in the first place, because the pilot that they showed on like in 2020 was so well liked that they were able to make a show. But he also said something that was interesting. He said, if you're an animator on YouTube and you're just like doing animated videos, you should continually do that and really not try to reach out to TV because you're getting the best of both worlds. You're showing whatever you're going to want to be showing. Whenever you want to add something, you don't have to like go through any censor boards. He said the main reason why they decided to go to TV and do this show was, well, actually he said it wasn't money. It's because they were able to do more of it. Like they were able to make a team and they were able to come out with 8 episodes like very fast, where if they were to do that on YouTube, it would have probably taken 5 years and like $1 million budget or something like that. Mm-hmm. They said it was a low budget show. Were you able to tell at all?
Yeah, absolutely. It's 11 minutes, 8 episodes. It's a low budget show, but it was some episodes were labeled MA and others were labeled TV14 LV. So I found that weird, especially since the more violent ones tended to be TV14 LV. And there wasn't like anything overtly sexual with the MA, so I'm just wondering what specifically people were flagging in those ones. Yeah. So I went episode 8, episode 2, episode 5, episode 4. Next one is episode 7, Frowning Friends, which is the competitive agency that opens up next door. They all live in a big smiley face, and this is going to be a big frowny face. Mr. Boss goes through like a whole depression phase where he gets a giant gun and like goes out to kill these people, and then it's just a weird episode, and it's the one where I heard the helium fact, and they just had a competitive version of themselves, like the evil Rick and evil Morty.
Oh, okay, so it was literally...
They kept on, it was almost like SpongeBob too, where they go door to door and they're like, hey, haven't we already talked to you guys before? And they're like, no, that wasn't us. They just look exactly like us.
And Zach Hadel has worked on SpongeBob before, so it's funny you say that.
And then the final ones that I have are episode 6 and episode 1, sort of tied for this last spot. Or the one right before the last spot.
Episode 6 was Enchanted Forest, and episode 1 was Desmond's Big Day Out.
Yeah, so Enchanted Forest... None of these were bad. They just went... I've seen it before, sort of. Like, they go through their whole journey trying to get to the princess, right? Mm-hmm. And then this character saves them. And then at the end, you find out that character is actually evil. And that's the end of the episode.
That's a twist, okay.
Yeah, and he tries to kill the person that they've been trying to save the entire time. But that's that. And then episode 1 was kind of our basis in the getting to know everybody. And there weren't too many bad plots in that one either. But the grossness of the little baby breastfeeding boss. And then you saw Desmond, who was like getting progressive. Like he had a gun to his head the entire episode, no matter where they took him. And so then he just, by the end, it seemed like he was going to kill himself, and then these like weird mouse things that bleeps come out of it, and he starts killing them, and then he realizes he wants to be an exterminator, and then he becomes happy.
That's a clip that they released on YouTube. Have you seen Midnight Gospel? It's the Netflix series.
I vaguely remember it.
Okay, I mean, I watched it just to see, hoping that you had seen it so that we could, like, kind of compare it to
I do not
show.
remember, but no, this show is less ridiculous than that. Like, the show wants to be as crazy as it possibly can, but it actually is more, like, just another cartoon show, which I'm glad it's getting noticed. But again, a 7 out of 10, just a mediocre thing that I would watch if I was bored. It makes fun of funny things, makes fun of incels in the last episode that I was going to say, which is episode 3, where... they're trying to get this guy, his girlfriend, back, and then end up matching him with the wrong girl, and then it ends up working out anyways. But he's a shrimp, and that was the funniest part of the episode, is that he was an incel, and they actually represented him as a shrimp, and then people started eating him, and he couldn't do anything because, like, shrimp don't do anything when they're scared.
I know that they went through, like, 20 iterations of the characters. Like, Pim was bigger than Charlie at one point, and I think a different color, and they went through, 1,000 different iterations before they finally decided to settle on these two.
My question is, like, how many more creators are going to come out with shows like this? Like,
well,
they feel like they're never-ending, the possibilities, but not necessarily needed for, like, more than just one season.
This isn't the first time that they pitched a show to Adult Swim. Hellbenders, the thing that I brought up before, after they released the first few like episodes of it, the 5-minute episodes on Zach had.
They're like shorts, queebies.
Yeah, they decided to pitch like a full-on TV series to Adult Swim, and you can even see that the pilot that they came up with, and a comment underneath one of the Hellbenders.
Wait, you can see the pilot online, is what you're saying?
Yeah, you can see the 15-minute pilot online, and even a comment that I agree with said, Hellbenders is smiling friends what Doc and Marty is to Rick and Morty, mostly because it's incredibly disturbing. There's something that Spider does that, like, I saw today that you were talking about looking away from the screen earlier. I legitimately had to, and that's what the story is about. But Adult Swim decided to pass on it because they said it was too much like a different show. A show that you've seen before. Do you want to guess what it was?
No, what is it?
It was the Mr. Pickles show.
Oh, okay.
I
thought that was Shivering Truth for some reason.
The dog waving a gun around.
Yeah,
that was Shivering Truth.
Yeah, I thought that was Shivering Truth. It also feels like a backflash to the Courage the Cowardly Dog or something like that.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
So there were several times when I wasn't sure if I was getting the joke right, but it felt like, you know that joke about Dave and Dave knows everyone and the Pope knows Dave?
Like
then there's a Dave land. And then they were like, "Where's Dave?" And they're like, "Well, I don't know."
But you think?
But it felt like it was supposed to be making fun of that joke because it's like a theme park where everything's Dave oriented.
Yeah.
But we never meet a Dave. So I think that's what it meant. But there were several times that type of stuff happened. Like someone who was ordering something at fast food felt like a meme character. Like his voice was very familiar, but I wasn't sure if that was what the show was going for. But maybe on rewatch, that's why they're saying it's good on rewatch.
Yeah, I think that part of the reason why they were able to maybe get guest stars on there is because Zach Hadel hosted a podcast where he would speak with like other YouTubers and people like Finn
Who's the biggest guest star they got?
Yeah, they got Finn Wolfhard and Nick Wolfhard.
His brother.
And then like they had Vsauce, H3H3, just a ton of different like YouTubers.
As voices in this?
No, not.
That would be crazy.
In the podcast. So they were maybe.
Can you imagine like Ethan Klein pulling up a video of himself in his podcast and being like, "Yep, that was me in the show."
Post Malone makes a silent cameo, and to this day I don't know what a silent cameo is, but in the first episode apparently Post Malone is like either drawn in there or maybe he was in the studio and didn't say anything. I really don't know, but apparently he makes a cameo.
I said there were some humans.
He makes a cameo in this and in Primal, but I don't remember anyone looking like Post Malone in Primal.
Well, that's about it for this weird show. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for listening. Once again, the order of my favorites was episode 8, episode 2, episode 5, episode 4, episode 7, episode 1 and 6 are tied in episode 3.
If they make a season 2, will you watch it?
Yeah, eventually. But again, this doesn't need to go for season 2. It's got enough. You get your money's worth just watching this 90 minutes.
All right.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.